Millionaire takes waitress to ex-fiancée's wedding. What she does next will leave you shocked. Jake had made his millions through a relentless drive and sheer willpower, carving a life that felt worlds apart from his small-town roots in Maplewood. But as he adjusted his cufflinks in the mirror, a sense of dread rooted itself in his stomach. The invitation card, embossed with posh lettering, felt like a weight pressing down on him. His ex-fiancée, Lisa, was marrying someone else, and he would be there to witness it, the ultimate test of emotional resilience. He felt untethered, grappling with the ghosts of relationships, decisions, and whispers that would greet him like old friends. To combat the relentless tide of expectation, he decided to invite Sarah, a spirited waitress who had spent her days dreaming of culinary greatness, a decision he questioned with every passing moment. Pulling into the lavish venue, Jake felt the tension coil tightly around him. The dazzling light seemed to mock his humble past. Sarah marveled at the opulence surrounding them, her wide-eyed wonder punctured by an awareness of the invisible barrier that distinguished them from everyone else. The wealthy elite flitted around them, their laughter like clanging coins, while Jake struggled to shake off the doubts swirling in his mind. He turned to Sarah, her youthful determination and infectious smile bringing him back to life. But as he watched her scan the room, her unease mirrored the internal battle gnawing at him. Someone who had clawed his way up a mountain now felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff. Before they could fully immerse themselves in the event, whispers bounced off the walls like darts aimed straight at Jake. He felt their penetrating stares, suspicion tangled with curiosity, judging his worth as his past came crashing back. When Lisa finally approached him, the carefully constructed walls of their history crumbled away. "Look at you," she remarked, condescension lacing her tone. "A success, yet still an outsider." Each word jabbed at him, stirring memories of their shared aspirations that felt like ancient ruins, cemented into the landscape of who he once was. Just as Jake wrestled with the sharp twinge of regret, Sarah shifted uncomfortably at his side, her presence suddenly feeling fragile. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see the warmth between them stoked by shared dreams, even as Lisa's voice twisted daggers, exposing Jake's carefully hidden fears. The lines of the past were drawn sharply, a pull between who he had become and who he once was. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." But as tension mounted, Sarah's phone buzzed, her expression shifting like the weather. The news that awaited her, a letter from home detailing struggles, sacrifices, hidden secrets, suddenly loomed like a storm cloud over them. The fragile connection they'd begun to forge now threatened to fray, caught in the web of expectations neither had signed up for. Could Jake navigate this whirlwind of emotions, battling his own lingering ties while trying to hold on to Sarah? Encircled by judgment and the tension of two divergent worlds, Jake questioned everything he thought he had achieved. Time ticked away at the wedding, leaving a crescendo of unresolved feelings that pulsed through the air, a countdown to decisions that might forever alter both their paths. Would love find a way amidst the complexities, or would wealth and status pull them apart? The unfolding chaos was a storm neither could control, and as doubt settled in, the night held its breath, waiting for their next move. Jake's mind raced, the ambient chatter fading as he concentrated on Sarah's discomfort. Her fingers tightened around her phone, the vibrant screensaver contrasting sharply against her fading expression. Whatever news she had received had clearly destabilized her. "Are you okay?" he asked, shifting closer, desperate to create a protective bubble around her. Yeah," she managed, though the tremor in her voice belied her words. "It's just some family stuff. Nothing to worry about." "Doesn't he sound like nothing?" he probed, his instinct kicking in, the instinct to shield those who mattered to him, even if they were still in the nascent stages of a bond. The flicker of distress in her eyes deepened. She forced a smile that didn't hold up against the situation. The overwhelming contrast of their surroundings, the gilded decorations, laughter bubbling around them, only served to amplify the pain bubbling up from within her. As Jake glanced around the room, the wealthy guests danced and mingled, far removed from the complications of everyday life. He felt the walls closing in, a growing sense of frustration stabbing at him. How could these people exist in a world so distant from the sweat and sacrifice that had paved his pathway? And why was he letting that same world pull him away from Sarah, whose dreams and struggles were as vivid as his own? Let's take a breather, he suggested, guiding her gently toward a quieter, less ostentatious corner. Away from the glaring lights and appraising stares, he focused on Sarah, searching for genuine connection amid the noise. Talk to me about it, please. I want to know. The pressure within her seemed to ease slightly, and Sarah took a deep breath. It's just, my mom is sick. They've been keeping it from me, but I found out today. It's serious, and I feel so far away. Jake felt a pang of empathy slicing through him. He had left behind Maplewood, yet here was Sarah, tethered to her family, experiencing the intersection of joy and sorrow. I'm sorry, he murmured, his voice low and sincere. You should be there. I can't just leave, she countered, her brow knitted in frustration. I mean, there's a future to think about, like the restaurant I've dreamed of opening. This wedding was supposed to be an escape. Now. Her voice trailed off as realization hit him. They both stood at the crossroads of aspirations and personal sacrifice. Jake's heart raced. In that moment, he recognized a fragment of himself in her struggle. The worlds they came from might be different, but the burden of expectation was achingly familiar. I know we're just starting out, but if you need to be there, I can help. We can find a way. The determination in his voice surprised even him, but it felt right. His failures and doubts suddenly morphed into a call to action. Sarah was worthy of everything she dreamed of, and her turmoil stirred something deep within him, a fierce desire to support her the same way he had fought for his success. Really? Her eyes mirrored surprise and admiration. Absolutely. I don't want to lose you to whatever's happening back home. As a smile broke across her face, tasked with the dual function of joy and relief, Jake felt the weight of his own uncertainties lift slightly. The echo of Lisa's derisive comment lingered in the air, but he refused to let it define him. Instead, he planned a way forward, a plan cemented in partnership and growth. Just then, the gathering crowd ushered in a wave of excitement, announcing the arrival of the wedding couple. Jake tightened his grip around Sarah's hand, silently promising her that he would not let their dreams become collateral damage in the face of adversity. But lurking in the back of his mind, the ghost of his past whispered doubts. Was he truly ready to face both the past and present simultaneously? The sight of Lisa, radiant and triumphant, fueled the fire within him. The time had come to confront not only his feelings about their shared past but also the realities of building a future worth fighting for. As the couple took the spotlight, Jake's resolve hardened. He would not allow this night to drown him in nostalgia. Instead, he would seize this opportunity to transform pain into purpose. But lurking in the distance, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the evening still held secrets yet to be revealed. Secrets that could change everything for him and Sarah. And with that, a new ripple of tension emerged, propelling him further into a night he knew would be anything but predictable. Jake's heart thudded in his chest as he navigated his emotions, each frantic beat echoing the turmoil swelling within him. The wedding couple's entrance had triggered a cascade of memories, igniting a tension that crawled beneath his skin. He could feel Sarah's presence beside him, her warmth a counterpoint to the swirling doubts that clouded his mind. His gaze flickered to Lisa, resplendent in her gown, perfectly poised amidst the perfect chaos. How had he let himself be drawn back into this world, this high society display, when all he really wanted was to forge something real with Sarah? The disconnect felt heavy, as though he were a ghost walking through a life that no longer belonged to him. Jake. Sarah's voice cut through his reverie, pulling him back. The concern laced within her tone gripped him. She was not just a waitress in this moment, she had chosen to be here with him, to face the tide of uncertainty together. The acknowledgement resonated deeply, He was not alone in this dance of dreams and fears. "Let us not lose each other tonight," he said quietly, the vow crystallizing in his mind. He needed to stand up not just for Sarah but for himself, the man he was becoming, forged from experience rather than circumstance. And tonight, he would confront that past head-on. He took a deep breath, grasping her hand a fraction tighter, and surveyed the room once again. This was not merely a social gathering. It was a battleground brimming with potential challenges and revelations. The clinking of glasses and the sound of laughter seemed to pulse in time with his racing thoughts. But that pulse transformed as he saw Lisa weaving through the crowd. She exuded confidence and grace like a star in her element, while he was left scrambling for footing. Would he always be chasing shadows in this world? He thought back on all he had fought to break free from endless cycles of rejection, the suffocating weight of expectation. The current moment felt like both a culmination and a new beginning. "Jake," Sarah's voice broke through his spiraling thoughts again, "are you okay? You look lost." "I'm good, just pondering," he chuckled lightheartedly, but it masked a whirlwind of hope and fear. If he was to support Sarah, he needed clarity. "Why don't we put our thoughts on the back burner for just a few moments? Let us celebrate this night, together." Her game face slipped back into place, a flicker of determination shining through as she nodded. "Okay. Together, we celebrate." They began to move, faces alight with excitement and anticipation. Yet, every step forward felt like a tightrope walk. Could he reconcile his newfound resolve with the ghosts of his past? As they mingled, exchanging pleasantries and laughter with the few he recognized, Jake remained acutely aware of Lisa not far behind them. Suddenly, she approached with a disarming smile, her eyes sparkling. "Jake! I didn't expect to see you here." The way she called his name carried a weight of familiarity that threatened to pull him back into a world he thought he was leaving behind. "Life's full of surprises, isn't it?" he replied, forcing himself to meet her gaze, to stand steady amidst the quake of vulnerability. Lisa's eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of something unspoken passing between them. "I suppose some surprises are worth revisiting. How's the new life treating you?" Her question hit him like a punch, piercing his newly formed facade. He was about to respond when the music shifted, drawing attention back to the couple. It was a call to celebration, a reminder of what was at stake. As laughter filled the air around them, the unease began to creep back in, weaving itself dangerously into Jake's burgeoning confidence. Maybe tonight wouldn't just be about Sarah's struggles or their emerging bond. He looked back at her, catching a glimpse of her strength. They were allies now, and together they could brave this storm. Yet, as Lisa's knowing smile lingered in his peripheral vision, Jake knew something had to give. Was he ready not only to confront Lisa but to redefine what success meant in the face of temptation? With a steadying breath, Jake turned to Sarah once more, ready to continue their celebration, but inside he felt the simmering tension of a reckoning drawing near. Would he rise to the challenge, or would his past consume him? As he wrapped an arm around Sarah, the answer shimmered on the edge of possibility. But the question lingered, coiling tight within him. What if he wasn't just fighting for Sarah's dreams, but for his own chance at redemption? The heartfelt atmosphere throbbed with energy, yet Jake felt adrift, like a solitary ship lost at sea. He shifted his weight, glancing nervously at Sarah, whose radiant smile seemed to cut through his turmoil, illuminating a path forward. The clinking of glasses and the rhythm of laughter around him became jarring when he considered the stakes of the night. This wasn't simply an occasion, it was a challenge, the start of a battle between who he was and who he aspired to be. He focused on Sarah's hand in his, warm and reassuring. She offered him a glimpse of authenticity amidst the opulence that surrounded them. Without her, he would feel like the embodiment of everything he had once tried to escape. But, still hanging in the air was the specter of Lisa, whose presence stirred a tempest within him, compelling him to confront not just her but the expectations he had cast aside. Did the remnants of his past still bind him to a future he no longer desired? "Dance?" Sarah asked playfully, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Jake hesitated. Thoughts of Lisa might linger at the edges of his mind, yet here was Sarah extending an invitation to engage with what mattered. With a deep breath, he took her hand and stepped closer to the dance floor, where couples twirled in euphoric rhythm, their movements natural and liberating. As they swayed to the music, Jake buried his face in her hair, inhaling her warmth. He could feel the tension in his shoulders starting to dissipate, the music coaxing out a smile he didn't know he possessed. For that moment, the weight of Lisa's assurances and expectations fell away. "You look happy," Sarah said, her words a tender caress against his confidence. "Only because I'm with you," he replied, leaning in to plant a soft kiss on her temple. But as her laughter mixed with the melody, a nagging thought resurfaced. Was it enough? Could one dance, one night erase the doubts and questions that clung to him like a familiar cloak? They stepped back from the crescendo of the dance, and as Jake caught sight of the mirrored reflections around them, he felt the tension in his chest tighten again. Lisa's gaze still lingered, drawing his attention as she stood across the floor, an unyielding force watching. This wasn't merely social interaction, it was confrontational, reminding him of the fractured history that thrummed just beneath the surface. "Pardon me, I need a moment," he said to Sarah, regret swirling in his gut as he peeled away from her. The shy courage he'd been cultivating dissipated for a fleeting second, and he navigated through the throng of chatter and applause until he found himself face to face with Lisa. "Why did you come, Jake? You're in a different world now, yet it looks like you haven't fully left yours behind." Her tone was laced with both intrigue and challenge. "Because I wanted to see if I could do it," he managed, without hidden meanings, voicing the very conflict that tangled in his mind. "Not just for me but for someone who matters." Her expression darkened with understanding, or perhaps a calculated evaluation, as she eyed his resolve. "Hurting someone close to you can be easy when you're not careful. You should consider what path you're on." The blow landed squarely, and for a moment, Jake floundered, his past reverberating painfully beneath the surface. Yet, within that moment of vulnerability, he found a flicker of determination. It was a reminder of why he chose this life, to embrace authenticity, tempered by his choice of Sarah. "I'm not afraid of the path I'm on," he said, firming his resolve. "But I will not allow the past to dictate my future any longer." With that declaration, something shifted within him, as if he'd taken back the reins of his destiny. As he turned away, he felt lighter yet more aware of the thread that would tether him back to Sarah, a source of grounding in his tumultuous world. Jake returned to Sarah, who watched him closely, curiosity reflected in her vibrant eyes. He awakened a sense of purpose within him, leaning into the uncertainty, uncertain yet resolute about charting his course. "What was that about?" she asked, tilting her head. "Just reclaiming what's mine," he replied softly, allowing the warmth of her hand to reassure him as they stepped back into the jubilant thrall of the celebration. But even as he danced again, the sensation of Lisa's presence lingered. It was no longer a threat but a reminder that tomorrow he would have to face those who may still control his past. Would that confrontation lead him to the peace he was seeking, or would the echoes of his former life drown him once more? The question spiraled, insistent and unyielding, leaving him to grapple with the uncertainty of whether he was truly free to uphold the dream he now held so close to his heart. Jake returned to the dance floor with a newfound lightness, the earlier confrontation with Lisa steadying his nerve. As he danced with Sarah, he began to understand that his pursuit of authenticity wasn't just for himself, it was also an investment in their relationship. Every movement felt like a step away from his past and a stride toward a future filled with possibility, yet, as the music enveloped them, Jake's thoughts remained tumultuous. Each laugh and smile shared with Sarah felt precious, yet overshadowed by lingering doubts. What was it that he truly wanted? Was he ready to sever the ties that bound him to Lisa for good, or would he continue to waver under the weight of his unresolved history? The rhythm around him pulsed like his heartbeat, yet within that cadence lay a restless spirit urging him toward resolution. "Are you okay?" Sarah's voice cut through his reverie, her brow knitted in concern. The way she gazed up at him reflected a depth that threatened to shatter his composed exterior. "Yeah, just thinking," he replied, attempting to mask the tumult within. About what? She pressed, so disarming in her honesty that he felt exposed. He hesitated, the internal war evident even in his silence. Did he dare share his fears, his confusion about love, commitment, and the shadows of his past? As if reading his mind, she squeezed his hand. It anchored him yet also introduced the weight of his truth. About Lisa, he finally admitted, feeling the words taste bitter on his tongue. Sarah's expression shifted, an instant awareness of the complexities swirling in his mind. You can't let her dictate your life, Jake. You're not the same person you were before. Her encouragement nudged him to consider just how far he'd come. Gone were the days of unrelenting self-doubt. He had built a life he was proud of, one flavored with unpredictability and possibility. Her faith in him ignited something within. Perhaps he could shed the confines of his past once and for all. I know, he asserted, his voice growing steadier. But maybe it's not just about her. It's the weight of who I was and what I'm trying to become. I don't want to hurt anyone, especially you. The admission was both a plea and a testament to his burgeoning strength. Whatever you choose, remember you deserve happiness, she said, a gentle firmness in her tone. And that includes making decisions without guilt. Jake allowed her words to penetrate his defenses. A wave of gratitude washed over him, and he nodded in understanding. But as the song shifted, transforming the atmosphere, tensions rose anew. He could sense a cloud thunderous with impending challenges, a confrontation that demanded resolution. Do you think I can really do this? He asked, his voice low, vulnerable. Jake, you're already doing it by being here. You're choosing this life. Sarah's eyes sparkled with determination, and he felt a surge of clarity flicker within. Taking a deep breath, he led her off the dance floor, feeling the thrum of the party still echoing in his ears. Jake searched the room for Lisa, and in that moment, he resolved to confront her. No more half measures. He would engage his past not out of fear but out of necessity. Let us go for a quick walk, he suggested to Sarah, who looked confused yet dutifully followed. She felt the shift in him, an unspoken promise to confront the specter he had kept at BAY.as they stepped outside into the cool night air. Jake's heart pounded with a mix of fear and anticipation. The world felt quiet, and the stars above twinkled like forgotten dreams, beckoning him toward clarity. Are you ready for this? Sarah asked, the worry in her voice as evident as the energy swirling inside him. Ready as I'll ever be, Jake replied, their hands still intertwined. He began to chart a path forward, one that would lead him face to face with the choices he had made, the person he had become, and the past that clung like ivy to his soul. Tonight marked the time for resolution, not just for himself but for Sarah. With every step he took toward Lisa, the weight he carried grew lighter, urging him closer to confronting his fears. But just as he prepared to step into the heart of the challenge, he caught sight of Lisa moving toward him. Would her presence unravel his newfound resolve, or would he emerge stronger than ever before? The air thickened with unspoken possibilities, and Jake braced himself for the impending confrontation. Jake's mind raced as he spotted Lisa, her presence evoking a delicate blend of longing and trepidation. She approached him, her smile a polished mask that concealed tumultuous questions. Everything he had felt earlier surged back to life, insecurities, regrets, and the stifling grip of the past. Each step he took felt laden with memories of their history, a history he was determined to redefine tonight. Jake, Lisa called, a lightness in her tone that jarred against the gravity of his intentions. Hey, Lisa, he replied, forcing a casualness he didn't feel. He could sense Sarah's hand tightening around his, grounding him amidst the tide of uncertainty. She paused a few steps away, studying him with an intensity that made Jake's stomach twist. You look good different. The compliment felt both flattering and dubious, an attempt to bridge a gap that felt unbridgeable. I've been working on things, he acknowledged, aware that the most significant changes were internal. How have you been? As they exchanged pleasantries, Jake analyzed every nuance of their interaction. This was a conversation with an ex-partner, layered with history and unresolved feelings. But tonight wasn't about revisiting the past, it was about moving forward. Busy, as always. You know how it is, Lisa said, her enthusiasm appearing rehearsed. There was no warmth or intimacy in her words, instead, they felt like an opening ploy, one he hadn't anticipated. Amidst the small talk, Jake's anxiety began to change into a controlled determination. He needed to address the stranglehold Lisa had over his life, the lingering influences that didn't match the man he was becoming. Lisa, about us, he started, the words heavy, hanging in the air like an unspoken confession. Is this about Sarah? Lisa interjected, eyebrows raised in feigned surprise that only fueled Jake's frustration. No, it's about me, he corrected, inhaling deeply to center himself. I've been thinking a lot about who I am now and what I want. I can't let the past keep shadowing my present, or my future. Her expression shifted, eyes narrowing slightly. You think you can just erase me? We shared so much. You can't just move on because it's convenient. Something inside Jake stirred. Even as her words brushed against his guilt, they solidified his resolve. It's not about erasing you. It's about reclaiming myself. He felt Sarah's presence, her unwavering support reaffirming his courage. I owe it to myself to step into the life I've envisioned and stop letting old ghosts dictate my happiness. Lisa's response was quick, as if he had struck a nerve. So, you think this is it? That you and Sarah are the answer? What if she's just a distraction? Jake bristled at the challenge. Maybe she is, but wouldn't it be better to find that out than to keep holding on to an old flame out of fear? The clarity in his statement surprised him, each word echoing the journey he had undertaken. For a long moment, Lisa looked taken aback, as if wrestling with her own reality. You're being reckless. You really believe you know what you want? More than ever, Jake asserted, a newfound conviction igniting within him. The doubts he once harbored, a swarm of insecurities encapsulated within the weight of their past, were dissipating. In that instant, it struck him, confrontation was not merely about closure, it was about setting a foundation for his own growth. What I want is to be free from the emotional baggage we carried together, he added, feeling the power of his words redefine their moment. But deep within, he wondered how free he truly was. Would cutting ties with Lisa give him the liberation he sought, or would echoes of their shared history always be a part of him? With silence stretching between them, Jake dared to feel hope, even in the midst of uncertainty. Could this truly mark the end of Lisa's hold on him? The air grew tense, as he waited for her response, an indication of whether she understood the importance of his evolution, and at his side, Sarah watched with an intensity that filled him with both support and a new layer of vulnerability. Unraveling the ties of his past now felt like standing at the edge of a precipice, ready to leap. But would he fall, or would he finally soar? Jake's heart raced, longing for an answer as Lisa's silence lingered. With all that had been said, the true confrontation lay ahead, the decision each of them would have to make moving forward. A singular question pounded in his mind, escalating with each heartbeat: would he be able to sever the ties of the past, or was the past already irrevocably intertwined with his future? Jake stood before Lisa, the weight of expectation heavy in the air. The lingering tension felt electric, buzzing with unspoken histories, yet a clarity began to crystallize within him. He had stepped into this confrontation intending to elevate his own narrative, to peel away the layers of doubt that clung tightly to him. Now, faced with her, he felt stripped of any pretense. Look, Jake, Lisa finally said, her voice a blend of vulnerability and defiance. I understand wanting to move on. I really do. But can you say that this new life, Sarah, is real? Or is it just a safe place for you to hide? Her challenge resonated deeply, pricking at the old wounds he hadn't fully addressed. Was he hidden behind the veneer of a new relationship, using it as a shield against whatever fears still haunted him? In that moment, he remembered late nights spent in silent reflection, wondering if he was ready to embrace the person he wanted to become. I can't hide from my past forever, he replied, digging deep for sincerity. His words spilled out with newfound assurance. I want a fresh start, but I need to face this head on. It's not about hiding, it's about confronting what has held me back. Lisa crossed her arms, her posture skeptical. Does Sarah know that? Has she seen you for who you really are, or just who you pretend to be? That question cut deeper than he anticipated. Jake swallowed hard, the essence of self-doubt creeping into his mind. Had he truly been authentic with Sarah, or had he merely sculpted an image of himself, one that he hoped would impress, and distract from a fractured past? The truth was more complicated than he wanted to admit. Whether or not Sarah could embrace him as he was, rather than some polished version of himself, hovered like a shadow between them. Honestly? Jake said, his voice thick with vulnerability. I'm still figuring that out. But I know I want to give it a try, really try. Not just for me, but for her, too. Lisa's expression softened for a fleeting moment, and in that brief exchange, Jake sensed a shift, the slightest crack in her emotional armor, revealing shades of her own insecurity. It's scary to think about moving on. But it feels even scarier to not try at all. I don't want to burden you with something you're not ready for. You're not a burden, Lisa, he countered instinctively, even as he scanned within himself for the right words. You were a part of my life, an important part. But what I'm beginning to understand is that carrying you with me, with all the unresolved feelings, only keeps me stagnant. The truth of his reflection settled like a weight between them. Over the years, Jake had worn the guilt of their shared history like a second skin, always wary of its suffocating grasp. But today, he could feel strength rising alongside his vulnerability. He didn't have all the answers, but he was ready to embrace the questions. A sudden thought struck him, igniting a flicker of courage. What if we commit to understanding rather than holding on to our past? It was a gamble, a risk of vulnerability he hadn't anticipated taking. The hope of reconciliation hung precariously in the balance. Lisa took a step closer, and for a moment, Jake thought he might see her defenses crumble. Maybe we owe it to ourselves to figure this out individually. Maybe it's time to rewrite our narrative, not just for one another, but for the life we want ahead. He could see her contemplating the realization, the growth they both desperately needed, and he felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. Would this spark a new beginning, or merely create more questions? Just then, Sarah's voice broke through the tension, shattering the fragile moment. Jake, you ready to go? Her presence, however supportive, offered a reminder of the duality that colored his future. Jake turned towards Sarah, noticing the question in her eyes. It wasn't just about him anymore, it was about her, their relationship, and the trials ahead. Constructing a future alongside Sarah meant confronting his past head-on, not just with Lisa, but with himself. Was he truly prepared for the risks involved? The weight of this realization lay heavy as he exchanged a glance with Lisa. Next steps loomed large and murky, marked by uncertainty. What implications would this redefining confrontation have on his relationship with Sarah? He had taken a leap, now, he wondered if he could take the next one. The air crackled with possibility, and amidst the tension, he could almost taste the change that lay ahead. Jake took a breath, allowing his emotions to stabilize while preparing for the emerging conflict. Would he be able to fuse these parts of his life together, or would the fractures deepen? As they stood, each contemplating their paths, a new question surfaced, challenging Jake to solidify his resolve. Was he ready to face the complexities of true love, or would his past sabotage any hope of a future? Jake's thoughts raced as he stepped away from Lisa, the intense conversation still reverberating in his mind. Each word lingered like an echo, a reminder of the unresolved questions tethered to his heart. He glanced back one last time, searching Lisa's face for clarity, but found only a mix of hope and uncertainty. Are you okay? Sarah's gentle inquiry brought him back to the present, her concern evident. The familiar warmth of her presence pulled him like an anchor. But just as easily, a pang of guilt shot through him. He had a burgeoning relationship in front of him, yet here he stood, mentally entangled in his past. Yeah, just processing, he managed, forcing a smile that felt brittle at the edges. He could sense her hesitation, but wasn't he ready to lay everything on the table? Not yet. Not when he was still figuring out who he wanted to be. As they walked to the car, the weight of his internal conflict persisted. Each mile away from Lisa felt like a geographic distance from those questions gnawing at him. How much could he share with Sarah? Would unveiling his insecurities allow him to connect deeper, or would it threaten the foundation they had been building? Do you want to talk about it? Sarah asked once more, concern softening her features. You seemed really intense back there. Is everything all right? Jake hesitated, a habit he had cultivated in past relationships. Opening up was always a risk one he had been avoiding. He had always felt more comfortable wearing the mask of confidence. But here was Sarah, patient and open, offering a chance to deepen their connection. I just had a conversation with Lisa, he began, testing the waters. It was difficult. We talked about the past, about moving on. There, he thought. Not too revealing, but enough to let her know something was bothering him. About your past together? She pressed gently, her fingers brushing against his arm. Without meaning to, he felt a warmth bloom in his chest, but the weight of truth was still heavy. Yes, he admitted, trying to keep his voice steady. It made me realize that I've been carrying some unresolved feelings, not just for her, but for myself and how I approach relationships. As he spoke, connections began to align in his mind. This conversation was exactly what he needed to chart a path forward with Sarah. What do you mean? Her genuine curiosity encouraged him to dig deeper into his own revelations. I think I've settled for being the version of me that I think everyone wants to see, especially with you, Jake confessed, his heart racing with vulnerability. I don't want to hide anymore. I want you to know who I really am, even if it's messy. Sarah's gaze softened, and what he saw in her eyes gave him more resolve. He could see she understood the complexity behind his admission. That's so brave of you, Jake. I want you to be real with me, too. I don't want you to feel like you have to put on a facade, she replied, her voice steady yet warm. Brave? He mused, questioning whether embracing his vulnerabilities was truly courageous or simply a necessary step. I've always thought about bravery as acting without fear. But maybe it's the opposite, standing there in the face of fears and still choosing to move forward. Oh, that's insightful, Sarah encouraged. Admitting what's inside is hard, but it's also how we grow, isn't it? Her words resonated with him, he felt an unearthing happening, layers of himself lifting with each moment of honesty. It wasn't just about Jake trying to work through his past, it was also about building a future based on genuine connections, free from old mechanisms of self-protection. You're right, he stated decisively. I need to be accountable for who I am with you. I want to bring my whole self into this relationship, not just the polished version. Now the path ahead seemed clearer, yet still fraught with the complications he had avoided. There was an energy of reconciliation building, both within himself and against the landscape of his past relationships. It was a gamble, but the stakes felt worth it. However, just as the clarity dawned, a possibility intruded. What if revealing his true self meant risking Sarah's affection? What if she couldn't love the flawed version of him as easily as she did the ideal he had tried to present? We may have to confront some difficulties if I want to be completely honest, he warned, feeling both the thrill of revelation and the icy fingers of fear gripping his heart. I can't promise it will be easy. With a thoughtful gaze, Sarah nodded. But it's the truth, right? And truth lays the groundwork for trust. That's something we can build on together. Jake sighed, a mixture of relief and anxiety washing over him. He felt ready to face the layers of his life he had previously hidden from both Lisa and Sarah. This was a shift, a resolve to be fully present and engaged, even if it meant undergoing trial and error. As they pulled into a coffee shop parking lot, he stole a glance at Sarah, contemplating their path ahead. This was only the beginning of embracing vulnerability, but would it lead him closer to understanding love in its truest form, or only cast light onto more uncertainties? The car came to a stop, and Sarah turned to him, a question hanging palpably in the air. Would he commit to peeling back those layers? Would he embrace the tumultuous road ahead, knowing it might illuminate aspects of himself he had long buried? Jake took a breath, silently weighing the risks. The moment of truth had arrived. As Jake stepped out of the car, the cool breeze hit his face, bringing with it a wave of clarity he hadn't anticipated. He couldn't linger on doubts or fears, they would paralyze him. With each step toward the coffee shop, he felt the weight of his own expectations pushing him to be more than what he believed himself to be. The scent of freshly brewed coffee enveloped him as they entered, and the busy hum of conversation pulsed around him, distracting yet invigorating. He could see Sarah scanning the menu, her expression one of innocent curiosity, and it grounded him. He needed to mirror that sense of openness, not just for her but for himself. "Do you want to order first?" Jake offered, trying to pull his thoughts away from the impending conversation that hung between them like an unresolved chord in a song. "I'm good, you go ahead," she replied with a smile, her eyes flitting to his in encouragement. Jake stepped forward, feeling the small but significant act of making a decision. He chose a cappuccino rich and layered, much like the layers he was ready to unravel in his life. He sensed that this moment of decision would be a small victory, reinforcing a newfound resolve to embrace his flaws. When he returned to their table with steaming cups in hand, he found Sarah still looking at him, as if she were waiting for him to speak. The anticipation hung thicker than the aroma in the air, and his heart quickened once more. "So, what now?" he began, searching for the right words amidst the myriad of feelings swirling within him. "I know I've said I want to be honest, but I also know there's so much I've kept bottled inside." Her gaze remained steady, encouraging rather than intrusive. "Then let us take it step by step. What's the first thing on your mind?" At that moment, Jake felt the pressure of vulnerability compete with the urge to retreat. In the past, he had often scanned for easy exits instead of confronting discomfort. But today was a different frame he wanted to break through. "I'm terrified of what this honesty might mean, Sarah. You've been so great, and I worry that by digging deeper into my past or revealing my insecurities, I might scare you away." Sarah took a sip of her drink, her expression thoughtful. "You don't need to fear honesty. It might be uncomfortable, but I think it's where real connection lives. Besides, my concerns are not from your past but from how we can shape our present and future." Her encouragement sparked something within him, a push toward deeper honesty. As Jake exhaled, he began to trace the lines of his past relationships, the fears that frozen him, the paths that led him to wear masks, and from where he sat an ever-present shadow of Lisa looming in the back of his mind. "I keep thinking about comparing things. With Lisa, I felt like I had to be perfect, with you, I want to be authentic. But there's a difference, a gap I don't know how to bridge. Being authentic doesn't mean exposing everything at once. It's about letting yourself be seen in the small moments. It's showing up with your flaws," Sarah replied softly, her kindness anchoring him to the present as he battled memories that seemed relentless. Jake's eyes flicked to her, a realization dawning. "You're right. This isn't solely about revealing my past, it's also about giving my present a chance to breathe. I can no longer shoulder the old narratives that reduced my capacity to love, to connect." The admission freed him momentarily from the chains of his former self. As he sipped his coffee, he looked deeper into Sarah's eyes, reflecting a flicker of trust building. There's still so much to unpack. But perhaps embracing the mess is a start. She nodded, a brilliant smile forming. It lit up one side of her face, illuminating the path Jake had just begun to grasp. The conversation opened a door. He was ready to own his reality, no matter how raw or messy it would be, yet in the midst of connection and possibility, doubt bubbled beneath the surface. Perhaps courage was only a facade he wore to mask his wavering heart. Could he truly handle what lay ahead? The uncertain path stretched out like a vast expanse, punctuated by the challenge of facing himself and Sarah. These confrontations awaited. "Just promise to walk through this together," Jake said finally, his voice steadying. "I promise," she returned, but her tone contained an unspoken weight. He could sense it, their growing connection was becoming a beautiful complexity, a dance he was willing to engage with. As they exchanged small smiles, a nagging anxiety licked the edges of his mind. Would he be capable of following through with his resolve? The time for action and commitment approached, but then, Jake noticed a figure in the background, a familiar silhouette stepping through the cafe door. His pulse quickened. It was Lisa. Everything he decided to do now cascaded into uncertainty, and the moment of truth transformed once more. How would this encounter push him further into courage, or pull him back into old patterns? The moment of reckoning loomed, and Jake braced himself for the confrontation he hadn't planned. As Jake stood face to face with Lisa, he felt the sting of vulnerability wash over him. The moment had arrived to define not only his past but also his future. The cafe around them hummed with the chatter of patrons oblivious to the storm brewing at their table. "Hello, Jake." Lisa's voice enveloped him like a cold wind, efficient and smooth. "I didn't expect to see you here, of all places." The recognition in her tone came like a familiar wave, yet it no longer swept him under. "Yeah, I'm here with Sarah," he stated, firming his resolve while gesturing towards Sarah, who sat observing the unfolding dynamics with supportive intrigue. "Is this really how you want to redefine your life?" Lisa questioned, her eyes narrowing as they flicked between him and Sarah. "You have to know how complicated this is." Jake held her gaze more confidently than he ever had before. "No more complications. I'm here to confront my past, and that starts with acknowledging who I truly am now." He took a breath, letting the silence permeate the air, allowing his words to fill the space between them. "Living in the shadow of our past isn't going to help anyone." Hearing that declaration, a warmth surged within him. There was clarity emerging from the confusion, a culmination of nights spent grappling with self-worth and accountability. As the weight of their shared history compressed against the backdrop of this moment, he increasingly recognized where he had been, and just how far he had come. Lisa shifted, her expression a mosaic of surprise and missed opportunity. "I never meant to keep you in that shadow, Jake. But sometimes our connections bind us too tightly to our past. Then it's time I untangle myself," he replied, willing to shed the burdensome threads of guilt and nostalgia. "We shared experiences, yes, but holding on to them as chains only stunted our growth." Her gaze softened momentarily. "And you think Sarah is the cure for all that?" Jake turned to Sarah, who watched with a patient reassurance in her eyes. "Sarah isn't a cure, she's a partner in discovering what it means to embrace who I am right now," he said decisively. "I'm working on being a better person, one who does not fear losing connections, but redefines them into something more authentic." The moment hung suspended, uncertainty was eclipsed by a powerful clarity. Lisa seemed to grapple with the shores of acceptance, realizing that Jake no longer sought the validation from her that had once anchored his identity. "I hope that the person you are, whoever that is, can truly be with her," Lisa finally admitted. "It's just hard to see someone change so drastically." Jake's heart steadied in that moment. Change is necessary when it leads to growth. "I want to honor who I was, but I will not allow that to define my choices or opportunities. I want to move forward without layoffs of regret." Suddenly, he felt the tension lighten, almost dissolve. Lisa's gaze shifted, almost reflectively. "Then by all means, move forward." As Lisa stepped back, Jake felt another layer peel away from him, revealing not only the strength he never realized he possessed but a path brimming with potential. The conversation with her, though daunting, had become a stamp of authenticity pressed upon the future he intended to forge. "Wow, that was," Sarah began, a smile inching across her face as Jake returned to her side. "You handled that so well." "I didn't just handle it, I took back my narrative," he said, pride swelling within him. Each word embodied a sense of achievement he had grappled with for so long. "It's time I stopped comparing who I am now to my past selves. Today, I own my story." In the moments following, as they stood in that coffee shop, Jake realized he had transformed beyond recognition. He was not merely a man haunted by memories but someone ready to build a future, unfettered by the weight of yesterday. "Jake, you're remarkable," Sarah said, her admiration palpable. The depth of their connection sparkled anew like gold unearthed from layers of stone. As they exited the shop, the sun had begun to dip lower in the sky, casting golden hues on the horizon. It was the perfect metaphor, the closing of the past's day and the dawn of a future strung together by hope and intentions. "Let us build something together," Jake said, looking ahead with bright eyes. "I'm ready to embrace what's next with you." "Me too," Sarah replied with a joyous enthusiasm that mirrored his own aspirations. From that moment, Jake understood he had not just confronted Lisa or shed his past, he had grown into the version of himself he longed to be. With renewed confidence and an unquenchable drive, he envisioned goals beyond just personal peace. He aimed for fulfillment derived from authenticity. Jake and Sarah walked side by side into the sunset, each step echoing with the promise of adventures forged from honesty and shared courage, an achievement far beyond mere reconciliation. And with that realization, a fierce pride ignited in Jake. The ability to craft his future, unrestrained, was his greatest victory. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click matters. Comment below your thoughts and reactions about this conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how powerful transformation can truly be. Don't wait even one more second to support our channel.